Joining me now are Jonathan Alter, an MSNBC political analyst and a columnist for the Bloomberg View, and Christina Bellantoni, associate politics editor for Roll Call. Thank you both for joining me tonight.
Hi, Lawrence.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Jonathan, the game is really on here. It's obviously a two-man race. Michelle Bachmann is not really in it, but she's obviously a factor. She's going to continue to cause problems for both of them. But this is Perry versus Romney for the presidential nomination, and neither one of them seems to be softening any punches so that they might preserve for themselves the possibility of the vice presidential nomination.
Yeah, that's right. And they're also violating what Ronald Reagan called the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not criticize another Republican. And actually, we have had, party contests that have been much more polite than this. You really did not see Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama going at each other this fiercely, and certainly not this early. But we could have 6, 7, 8 months of this. It's a little hard to know where they're going to go from here, and it's a sign of just how addicted Republicans have been to rhetorical shots. This is what their party is about, taking pot shots. It's not even really about ideas. Used to be much more a party of ideas. Now it's a party of insults. And usually those insults are directed at Democrats and liberals. But once you get in the habit of just running your politics through insults and negative research, then you turn it on each other.
Christina, Jonathan's point, I think, is quite important. That when the last big presidential primary fight that we saw, the Clinton versus Obama, did not include specific attacks on each other's records. The historical distinction between them was simply that Barack Obama was against the invasion of Iraq and Hillary Clinton voted for it. That's about where it began and ended. Here you have these two governors. They each have things in their records that are serious problems that have developed with a Republican primary electorate. Where do they go in terms of trying to preserve that notion of Reagan's that we should really be fighting against the incumbent Democrat, even during the Republican primary, instead of slamming each other? Is slamming each other going to be the way they find themselves trying to win this thing? Is this what we're going to see all the way through, or are they going to get over this little fit and get back at aiming at Obama?
Yeah, I'm sure they will get back at aiming at Obama eventually, but I would actually disagree with both of you on this. That fight between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama was very tough. Now, granted, they didn't necessarily lob insults at one another the way you're seeing this, and it's very easy to say Perry care, Romney care, Obama care, right? And these debates have been a little bit intense, but right about this time in the cycle, in 2007, you had that July YouTube debate, and that was really when things elevated because, Barack Obama was asked would he sit down and negotiate with the leaders in Iran and other places, and Hillary Clinton really stepped that up. It was very fierce. There were all these questions of could they ever come together, and she's the Secretary of State now, But I would caution the Democrats should not get too excited about all of this, because one of the other things that happened in 2008 was that the whole nation was captivated by that Democratic primary fight, particularly because it lasted so long, but also because it was so interesting and dynamic and had a lot of fireworks. And so the more the nation is engaged in getting to know these Republican candidates, that's not necessarily that great for Barack Obama when he is trying to get out there and get his message across. So I think that it's definitely going to be an interesting few months.
Jonathan, we saw in that last Democratic version of this with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton that the primary process strengthened Barack Obama as a presidential candidate. Is that the possible outcome here, that the Perry or Romney nominee will be strengthened by this? It certainly looks like Romney has stepped up his game in this fight.
No question about it. It puts them into fighting trim, and it actually puts the president at a little bit of a disadvantage. His debating skills and fisticuff skills will be rustier when the general election campaign starts, and he has to start ripping into the Republicans. He's not particularly good at that anyway, and these other two will have a lot more practice going forward. But they're also developing some pretty good video for the Obama campaign to use. Perry is turning into a piece of household knowledge that Romney was 47th out of 50th in job creation when he was governor of Massachusetts. That's a pretty good rejoinder for Barack Obama in a fall campaign when Romney starts in on stewardship of the economy. And at the same time, when Romney starts going after Perry on Social Security, that will be enormously useful to Obama in the fall.
And Christina, the Obama campaign doesn't have what you could call the attention-getting advantage of a primary campaign right now, but it is scoring points. Every time Romney or Perry scores points against the other, those are, in effect, points scored for the Obama campaign in a general election because you've damaged that image. Romney is in a position to damage somewhat Perry's image on job creation in Texas. Obviously, Perry can damage Romney's image in different ways. And so those shots that they're taking ultimately are to the profit of the Obama campaign as it sits on the sidelines and watches it.
Yeah, and they're also using this as a really an organizing tool for them, because right now you've got a lot of Democrats that, yes, are dissatisfied, yes, are doing a lot of grumbling about what Obama has and has not been able to achieve, but they don't like this Republican field. They're looking at it and they're starting to get a little bit more and more nervous that President Obama could lose in 2012, and so the Obama campaign is very strategically talking to those people and getting them to get out in their neighborhoods and sort of build the grassroots organizing that they were so successful at in 2007 and 2008. So they sort of look at this as, well, let all the Republicans fight it out. We're going to continue to highlight that none of the Republicans, or very infrequently do those Republicans talk about the middle class, and that's what we're going to be talking about. They're trying to draw the distinctions even though they don't have an actual rival yet.
And also, Scary Perry is a very good message for the Obama campaign, more than Scary Romney. Romney doesn't scare a lot of people. He might creep some Democrats out, but they're not as terrified of him as they are of Perry. And so that will help with some intensity, and there has been some problem with that in the Obama campaign, though, as David Axelrod pointed out this morning, Democrats are pretty united behind Barack Obama. For all the grumbling you hear in the chattering classes, his numbers, over 80% approval among Democrats, pretty healthy, even healthier than they were for Bill Clinton in 1995.
That's right. Let's take a look at the latest New York Times CBS poll. It just came out in the last couple of hours to see the rankings here in the Republican presidential primary field. You have 23% now, 23% in this poll supporting Rick Perry. Romney, 16%, which is not that big a gap between the two of them there. And then the next thing that you pick up in the polling is, in terms of magnitude, is an undecided of 12%. 10% saying they just don't know, which I'm not sure quite what the difference is between undecided and don't know. There is a second tier here, a single-digit second tier that we should take a look at as we're looking at the total rankings here. Michelle Bachmann comes in at 7%, Newt Gingrich at 7%, Herman Cain at 5%, Ron Paul at 5%, and we don't have Santorum even showing up there, and that's in this poll. Christina, at some point, all those also-rans are going to drop out. At some point, their 7% of support for Michelle Bachmann is 5% for Herman Cain is going to migrate somewhere. And as I look at that, it looks like that support is more likely to migrate to Perry, more likely to go in what is perceived as the more conservative choice. So when we really do get down to two-man, does that indicate that we're seeing here now that Perry's lead will widen in a two-man race?
I mean, that's certainly a possible scenario, but a couple of things you said there I think that we should examine. First of all, I would not suggest that Bachmann will be leaving the race anytime soon. She's able to raise money. She certainly can stick in there. This could be a very long primary season, going through multiple states. If she has the money to keep going, she might do it because Perry could slip up. And as you said, her supporters are very conservative. His supporters are conservative. They might just flock to her. Now, Is that scenario likely? I don't actually know, but we'll find out. I think that that's very possible. But you're already seeing this sort of divide among the candidates, you know, with former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty coming out and endorsing Romney. You're seeing sort of that a little bit more moderate, a little bit more establishment candidates getting back behind Romney. You know, there are certainly, you know, elements of the former Bush administration that quietly back Romney but don't want to get involved. So yeah, then you've got that anti-establishment, those Herman Cain voters, even potentially those Ron Paul voters, even though the two of them are sparring. They could definitely go side with Perry, but I definitely would not call this a full two-man race just yet.
The other thing, Lawrence, is that we don't talk at all in these conversations about independent voters who, because there is no contest on the Democratic side, will vote in the Republican primaries in states with open primaries where they're allowed to do so. And their views are not picked up by a lot of these polls, which is why I think it's too early to rule out John Huntsman. You know, Tom Ridge just endorsed him. Is he likely to get the nomination? Obviously not, but it would be silly at an early stage to rule anybody out. And you could see a situation where Perry beats Romney badly in Iowa, and then Romney's very vulnerable in New Hampshire to somebody else. So there are a lot of different ways this could go, and there's a long history of these things turning out very differently than they looked even in December of a year prior to an election. A lot can change.
Christina, to your point about how long Michelle Bachmann and Ron Paul will stay in, it seems to me Ron Paul will stay in to the very end. He can campaign on a shoestring. He's going to stay on the debate stages as long as anyone is going to stay on them. And the two of them, Michelle Bachmann and Ron Paul, those are the two candidates who actually end up causing the most trouble for both Perry and Romney in these debates, because they are the ones who are absolutely fearless in taking just vicious shots at those front runners, both to get attention and also because of their true, real conservative beliefs that they think have been violated in Bachmann's case, for example, by the Perry mandate on taking a vaccine, in Romney's case by all sorts of things, including the health care mandate in Massachusetts. So if you're Perry and Romney, you got to be praying for those two to drop out.
Well, I don't know about dropping out or any sort of prayer involved there, but Bachmann in particular, has really taken every opportunity she can to reinsert herself in this conversation. You know, today, what she did with Perry Care, everybody was talking about that. Her attacks on both Perry and Romney, you know, come off as very sharp, very authentic. She knows what she is doing. She has smart campaign people working for her, and she has decent political instincts. All of that said, you know, Perry does seem to be weathering some of these attacks. I mean, his standing has not dropped in the polls. You're seeing this is continuing to be a very close race. But Jonathan's exactly right about, you know, those independents that are going to participate. I just talked to a Democrat yesterday who's going to be voting in New Hampshire in the Republican primary and probably going to vote for Huntsman. So, you know, there's definitely an element of that here, and, you know, we're months away. So.
You know, Lawrence, can I just make a quick point about Michelle Bachmann and collateral damage? Her comments about crazy comments about somebody getting mental retardation from, you know, this vaccine, that will lead to the deaths of American women. Probably of a conservative bent. Their parents will hear something like that. They won't allow them to be vaccinated, and a certain percentage of them in the future will develop cancer because they were not vaccinated. There's a reason for those vaccinations. It prevents cancer. And if you don't get it, you're more likely to get cancer, and some of those folks will die. So sometimes the consequences of what gets said in political campaigns is assessed in its immediate political terms and not in its more distant human terms. And I'm afraid we will look back at Michelle Bachmann's contributions in raising that issue up, and it's going to lead some people to lose their lives, unfortunately.
Jonathan, we're going to expand on that very point in the next segment. MSNBC political analyst Jonathan Alter of the Bloomberg View and Christina Bellantoni from Roll Call. Thank you both very much for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Thanks. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Coming up,